Something that always bothered me about structures in Minecraft is how barely any of them make use of redstone. You have the jungle temple, which has a few traps and a combination lock, as well as the redstone tutorial area in the ancient city. But that's about it. So let's see how I upgraded 10 structures, beginning with mineshafts. This is actually the idea that kickstarted this whole video. So when you explore mineshafts, you will sometimes find these chest minecarts with honestly pretty bad loot, but I think I found a way to make them at least a bit more interesting. For large scale farms, minecart unloaders are some of the most useful contraptions. I think mineshafts could be the perfect place to teach players how this works. Now obviously this looks kind of messy, but it's the idea that counts. So down here you will see this minecart with the normal loot, but if you press this button, it will go off in this direction and put all the loot in this chest. When it's eventually out of items, it will then go back to the beginning. It would still be the normal loot table, so it's not broken in any way. It's just a nice way to nudge the player in the right direction. On to the next idea. And what better place to upgrade than the already amazing ancient city? And yes, technically this area does already have redstone, but it's kinda just sitting here with no context. It's more of a really misplaced tutorial than anything. So instead, let's make the ancient city a bit more dangerous. Sculk sensors are perfect for sending wireless redstone signals, but they can also trigger shriekers, which in turn will summon the warden to kill you. So why not combine those two functions? Again, this doesn't look the best, but it's a really interesting idea. If you make any sounds near these posts, they will send the signal in this direction, which could in turn summon a warden or two. Obviously, this would make ancient cities a lot more difficult to traverse, but also it would teach players about wireless redstone. On to the next structure. And this is a really quick one. Just a lava trap to make strongholds a bit more dangerous. Seriously, strongholds are way too easy for being an endgame structure, so a couple of traps would be nice. And that's already it. Now, desert temples are interesting. Of course, they already have the pressure plate and TNT trap, which probably will kill you the first time you enter one of these structures. But let's face it, after falling for it once, it's not gonna work again. So instead, what if there's a low chance for a chest to be trapped with a piece of TNT below it? This would be absolutely fatal, which is why the TNT is so obvious. But it would make desert temples a bit more interesting. And on top of that, we could make these a bit more dangerous than the pressure plate, just by making sure that there's no way to escape. So we just had a lot of traps, but what about this? Igloos can sometimes generate with a basement. These basements are already a great tutorial. They teach you about zombie curing, but we could make that a bit more obvious. This dispenser just has a weakness potion inside of it, which we can use to dispense onto this villager to cure it. Just a way to showcase some dispenser functionality, on top of making this tutorial a bit more obvious. Speaking of villagers and dispensers, Spruce Villages can sometimes generate with one of these. Now these armory stations are pretty useful just for getting some early game iron armor. But what if we went a step further? Just a really simple armor equipping station. They could even remove one of the armor stands to make it a bit more balanced. But again, this would be really good for teaching the player about dispenser functionality, and it would just make this a bit more interesting, if not a bit more out of place. Woodland Mansions are probably the most jam-packed structure in the whole game, with lots of interesting rooms and even some hidden rooms. Hold up, hidden rooms? That sounds perfect for a flush piston door. You probably wouldn't be able to tell that there's anything here, but if we go in this room over here and press this very well hidden button, we can see this doorway opening up, revealing the most important room in the game. Okay, maybe not for this room, but I think for some of the other hidden rooms this would be really interesting. This would teach the player about a practical use of pulse extenders, as in ancient cities they are just kind of lying around. And also piston doors are just nice, so why not? For the last overworld structure, let's take a look at this absolute disappointment. What do you even get out of this? Infinite water? There's a bunch of that over there. So why not turn this into a wishing well? You could actually make use of a loot table for this, but just for the sake of demonstration, if you throw a gold nugget in, you will get a diamond. Yes, I know, perfectly balanced. But to be fair, diamonds are pretty common in structures, so this might be fine. This obviously would teach players about item filters, which again is a really important part of Redstone. But what about the Nether? For this we're gonna take a look at one of my favorite structures, the Bastion. And I'm thinking of hoglin cages. These will make use of these black stone pressure plates, which as far as I know are used nowhere else in the entire game, to create this hoglin based trap that will release them when you step on it. Now obviously this is pretty dangerous, but since stuff like this can happen, you could also use this to just cause some chaos. And again, it's just really good for teaching players about monostable circuits. Now, most of these changes aren't perfect, and I definitely don't want to see all of them in the game. While they could be nice, it would probably make the game a lot more messy. So maybe just 1 or 2 of them. However, we have one more structure to go through, which would be an absolute game changer. And for this we have to go all the way to the end. Now pay close attention to what I'm about to do. You need to break these stairs and then just replace them with a redstone block. Incredible.